And perfect timing as we begin the new parak, and we welcome in Dr. Eisenberg, who is joining us for the new parak, and he has officially told us that from now on he's not going to miss a daf. Dr. Eisenberg, it's great to have you. New daf on Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, Leiv.
I get a mazel tov, Rabbi. Eliana had a baby yesterday.
Mazel tov. Boy, girl?
Girl, Chaya Rachel.
Chaya Rachel, you should be zeichel, gadla, leben Torah, lechuppah, lemaisim tovim.
Amen.
Wonderful news. Wonderful news. And when the rule is, when a girl is born in the family, you have to come on the daf for 60 days in a row.
And bring me a bottle of bourbon too.
Now, okay. So says the new Mishnah, Echad dinei mamanis ve'echad dinei nefashis, both monetary matters and capital crimes, bedrisha ubachakira, needs the rigorous investigation and examination. We'll see that that's not true, that dinei mamanis does not need drisha ubachakira, so we'll talk about that later in the Gemara. Shenema mishpat echad yelachem is one law for both. But there are differences between financial matters and capital crimes. Financial matters are judged by 3 judges. While capital crimes are with 23, the small circuit Supreme Court of 23 judges. By financial matters, we could open both with an argument for innocence or for conviction. But v'dinei nefasha is paiskin l'schus. You have to start with an argument for his innocence. Ve'ein paiskin l'chayv. We'll see how do you start that. Dinei mamanis matin al pi echad. Financial matters we decide with a majority of even one. Bein l'schus, bein l'chayv, both for innocence or conviction. V'dinei nefashis matin al pi echad l'schus, we decide with a majority of 1 for his innocence. V'al pi shnayim l'chayv, but to convict you need at least a majority of 2. Dinei mamanis marzirin, we reverse the case, bein l'schus, bein l'chayv, whether for innocence or guilt. Dinei nefashis, marzirin l'schus, we reverse the case for innocence, ve'ein marzirin l'chayv. Once we declare innocent, we don't reverse the case to guilt. Dinei mamanis hakol maladim l'schus v'chayv. Everybody, even the talmidim that are sitting below in the bullpen, so to speak, can argue both for innocence and guilt. Dinei nefashis, but in a capital crime, hakol maladim l'schus, even the talmidim that are sitting on the side, the 3 rows of 23 backup judges could argue for innocence, but only the sitting judges could argue for guilt. Dinei mamanis hamalamid chayv malamid schus. Dinei mamanis, one of the judges that was leaning towards guilt can change his mind to innocence. Malamid schus, and one who was saying innocent could be malamid chayv, could change to guilt. Dinei nefashis, however, hamalamid chayv, one who was saying guilt, malamid schus, could change to an argument of innocence. But one who was arguing for innocence, ein yachal lazu l'lamid chayv, he can't reverse to guilt. Dinei mamanis, done in b'yayim v'gayim b'layla. They start during the day, they could even issue the verdict in the night. Dinei nefashis, everything has to be done in the day, done in b'yayim v'gayim b'yayim. Judge in the day and completed in the day. Dinei mamanis gaimer bay bayim bein l'schus bein l'chayv. Financial matters you could decide both for innocence or guilt the very day that the case was opened. Dinei nefashis, by capital crime, gaimer bay bayim l'schus, they could complete the case that day if they're declaring innocence. However, ubiyim shel achra of l'chayv, they have to wait till the next day to declare guilt. And therefore they cannot open a case on an Erev Shabbos or an Erev Yom Tov. Lefikach, by a capital crime, ain't done in Lo B'Erev Shabbos, Lo B'Erev Yom Tov, because they would have to issue the verdict on Shabbos or on Yom Tov, on the second day, and then they would have to execute because you don't delay the execution, and you can't execute on Shabbos and on Yom Tov. Dinei Mamonos, financial matters. Hatmeis v'Atayros, issues of Tumah and Tara. Maschilon min hagadol. You could start the decision from the senior member of the court. But Dinei Nefashis, but matters of life and death, Maschilon min hatzad, because once the gadol of the court issued a ruling, nobody would be able to argue with him. So therefore, then they start from the side. Remember, they sat in a semicircle, so the side is from the lesser judges.
So how come Dinei Mamonos is different if they can't argue?
Well, obviously, by Dinei Mamonos, they could. Hakol ksherin lo doin Dinei Mamonos. Everybody is kosher to participate in a bezdin for financial matters, even if his pedigree is no good, even if he's a mamzer. But not everybody could judge in a matter of life and death, in a capital crime. Only Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim, Amasiim, the Kuna, who have the good pedigree to marry into the Kahuna. As we welcome in Richard Rosenzweig, it's good to have you for our 28th Zoomer of the evening, Bigematria Koyach, and we have a lot of work to do on everybody's part to do more recruitment. I mean, last week we had 41. That means that there are people that need chizik, dvarim shetzrichen chizik. We really have 29 tonight because we could give Yitzi a separate box. But still, it's a far cry from the 41 that we had last week, or even the even the 36 that I told you he's carrying. And I told him to use a silencer. But anyway. Says the Gemara, you started off that Dinei Mamonos needs the rigorous investigation and examination. Says the Gemara, Dinei Mamonos mi ba'inan drisha v'chakira. We give a lot of latitude by financial matters. V'raminu, shtar shizmanoi kosev, a document that it says on the document, Be'echad b'nisan b'shmita. This document says that Marshall owes Nachman $1 million. We're not kidding around over here. Marshall owes Nachman $1 million, and he took the loan on the 1st of Nisan in a Shemitah year. Now, the witnesses on this loan were Yaakov and Shimon Der. Yaakov and Shimon Der were the witnesses on the loan. However, so they said it was on the 1st of Nisan in Shemitah. And exasperated, Mel and Shimon say, I don't know what Yaakov and Shimon are talking about. How could you give that testimony? On the 1st of Nisan of Shemitah, you with us in Dubai. So, I mean, what's going on over here? So it sounds like Yaakov and Shimon are, cooked. It sounds like that they're real Edom Zayimim. Says the Gemara, oh no. Shtar kosher, ve'edav kasherim. The shtar is kosher and the witnesses are kosher. Why? Because we say the truth of the matter is that Shimon and Yaakov saw Nachman give this loan to Marshall on Purim.
Edom Zalman, gotta be.
They didn't get around to recording it until Nisan. Now, as long as it's not a shtar muktam, it's a shtar ma'ucher, it's okay. Shtar muktam is no good because then they would give him a lien when he doesn't deserve it. But this is shtar ma'ucher. Says the Gemara Chayshinan, we suspect, Shema ichruhu v'kasvu, that Yaakov and Shimon just delayed it. They saw the loan that Nachman gave Marshall $1 million on Purim. And they just recorded it on Nisan. Now, the truth of the matter is, if they did that, Tosfos says they should have wrote that they were recording it in Dubai. Because that's where they were. But they put in the shtar the place where Nachman gave the loan to Marshall in Chicago. Which is okay. Which is okay.
Were they signed on it?
What?
No, we just testifying on the shtar. Are they signed on the shtar?
They're signed on the shtar.
So how could they make Adam Zoma say you weren't? But their signatures are there.
The signatures just was that the loan was given. That's all.
There's no Zman on the shtar?
It is, but it doesn't say that the loan was given that day. It just says that Marshall owes Nachman $1 million. I don't understand, Rabbi Kranz. You're protecting Marshall?
We're assuming that these Adam are signed on the shtar, and other Adam say you didn't sign on the shtar. You were with us in Dubai.
They were.
Their signature is on the shtar. How can they go against that? Unless they were forged.
No.
Then I'm missing something.
You are.
No.
They wrote the shtar in Dubai.
Okay. But what are the Adam Zomim tests saying that? Were they saying it's not true?
No. But they say that Marshall took the loan. Marshall owed Nachman, took a loan from Nachman, and they wrote the date of Nisan. Now Marshall took the loan from Nachman in Chicago. So it's very suspicious. What's the matter?
I have to think that over because it's still the fact that they're signed on it. Okay.
I don't know.
I don't want to take more time.
I don't know. So I'm telling you, Tosfos says that they made a mistake. They should have, since they were writing it in Dubai, they should have signed it in Dubai. But since they were testifying about a loan that took place in Chicago, they wrote Chicago. But they didn't say that the loan took place on Nisan. Now, but if we do Drisha v'Chakira, so then we're going to ask them the time, the date, V'isal Kedai to be in Drisha v'Chakira, Heichi Chayshinan. How could we be suspicious? Shema Chru v'Kasvu, maybe they delayed it and wrote it. We asked them what was the date, we asked them everything. So the Gemara says, according to you, Tik Shelach Mas Nisan. Ask from a Mishnah. A Mishnah says, Shtarei Chayv HaMukdanmin, a Shtar Chayv that's predated, that Marshall took the loan on Nisan, and they wrote that the loan was given on Purim. That's psulim. That's possible, because that gives Nachman a lien against Marshall from Purim when really he only has a lien from Nisan. So that shtar is definitely possible. V'amucharim ksherim, but if it's post-dated, it's kosher. That means the loan was given on Purim, but they wrote the Nisan, that's kosher. But v'isol kedai to be in the drisha v'chakira, that we have to pinpoint exactly when it was, mucharim amai ksherim. It wouldn't be good if it's post-dated. We have to know exactly when everything took place. So the Gemara says, why didn't you ask from a Beferish Mishnah? Says the Gemara, We ask even from this case, where it says that Marshall took the loan on the 1st of Nisan in Shemitah. Now that's to say that they post-dated it, and they would do it in Shemitah. Most people wouldn't do that because it's suspicious, because most people don't give loans on Shemitah because Shemitah is Meshamet. Shemitah cancels the loan. It's not very, very usual that people give loans on Shemitah. It's not likely that people would post-date it to a time that's suspicious. People don't want to weaken the shtar and date it to a time which is suspicious. Since Shemitah only relinquishes the debts at the end of the year, at the day before Rosh Hashanah of the end of Shemitah, so it still could be collected from Marshall, Machshirinan. We approve it. But Mikol Makam Kasha, still we see over here that it doesn't seem to be that we do Drisha v'Chakira by Mamanis, because we see we're not pinpointing exactly the date. So now the Gemara gives a few terutzim, 3 lines from the bottom of Daf Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. Rab Chanina Dvar Torah Echadin Mamanis v'Echadin Nefashis b'Drisha v'Chakira. And that's the way our Mishnah says. Biblically speaking, there should be Drisha v'Chakira even by financial matters. Shenemar Mishpat Echad Yelachem, as the Mishnah says. Why are we less rigorous by financial matters? Because if we would be so rigorous, no one would ever give loans. Nachman would never give a loan. I mean, you see how benevolent Nachman is. He even gives a loan to Marshall.
His mother never warned him about me.
What could you do? Feel bad for Nachman. Says the Gemara, Elamei Ato, if that's the case, if the Dayanim made a mistake, the din is they have to pay from their own pocket. But according to this, lo yishalmu. They shouldn't have to pay, because they would say if we would have been able to do Drisha v'Chakira, we wouldn't have made a mistake. So the Gemara says, yeah, but we have to make the din that if they make a mistake, they have to pay, because otherwise, for sure, nobody would give loans. Then for sure, people would not give loans. So that's the first answer. You're right. By dinei mamanis, regular financial matters, there's no Drisha v'Chakira. Dinei knasais, penalties, like kefil, daled v'hei, there's Drisha v'Chakira. The idach, that which we learned, that we're not so precise, that's by bahidayis v'alvayis, by admissions and loans. Rapapa ma'aydi v'aydi bahidayis v'alva. Normally, there's no Drisha v'Chakira. However, kan bedin meruma, our Mishnah that says this Drisha v'Chakira is talking about a din meruma, a suspicious case, where the claimant is a suspicious guy. We already had him in court. We know he's a dishonest person. Or the judge feels that there are things that are suspicious. Kan bedin she'ein meruma, if it's not a suspicious case, then you don't need Drisha v'Chakira. K'derei Lakish. The Reish Lakish Rami. Reish Lakish asks a question. Ksiv tzedek tishbad amisecha. You should judge your friend favorably. The ksiv tzedek tirdaf. You should pursue relentlessly tzedek. So which one is it? Okay, tzed kan bedin meruma. If it's a din meruma, then you have to pursue it diligently. Kan bedin she'ein meruma, so then you don't have to be suspicious, and you could judge your friend favorably. Rav Asi Amar Mashnisan Kiddushanin, the Mishnah is like we answered, either a din meruma or it's dinei knasais. However, Kroi, the pasuk of tzedek tirdaif, is giving us a choice. Echad ledin ve'echad lepshara. Sometimes we go for strict judgment, And sometimes we go for a compromise, for arbitration. That's tzedek, tzedek, tirdoif. Two types of judgment. Kiditanya. Tzedek, tzedek, tirdoif. Echad ledin ve'echad lepshara. Sometimes strict judgment and sometimes compromise. Ketzad. So here the Gemara gives us a very interesting case. Very, very interesting. Shtei sfinas oivers benar. You have two boats that are traveling along a narrow strait. Opaga zebezeh, and they're coming one facing the other. Im oivrei shneyan, if they both pass, in other words, if they both keep on their course, shteyem tayvos, they'll collide with one another and they'll both drown. If one moves to the side and lets the other one go, shteyem tayvos, then they'll both be safe. V'chein shnei gamalim, two camels, gamalim, she'ya'olim b'mailas beis charon, as we say on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, the ascent of beis charon was a very, very narrow ascent that only allowed one animal at a time. Upaglu zebezeh, and the animals were coming one after one at each other. Im olu shneim, if they both continue to go, shneim neifim, they'll both fall off the cliff. They'll bump into each other, and they'll both fall off the precipice. They'll both fall off the cliff. Bizachazeh, if one backs up until the narrow widens and goes on the side and gives right of way, shnei and island, they'll both pass. So haketzad, how do we decide which boat should move to the side? How do we decide which animal should move to the side? So din is to una v'she'ena tuna, if one is heavily loaded and one is not. Titcha she'ena tu'una mipnei tu'una. The one that's not loaded moves to the side. Kroiva v'she'ena kroiva. If one is close to their destination, so they could afford a little bit of a delay, and one is not close to their destination, titcha kroiva mipnei she'ena kroiva. Let the one that is close to the destination move to the side. So this would be din. But if you stay in kroivim, if they were both close to their destination, or stay in rechaikis, they were both far, or both of them were loaded, or both of them were unloaded, hatel pshar beineim, make a compromise, so the one that goes first will compensate with money the one that went to the side. Or malas schar zu lezu, and they give compensation one to another. That would be a compromise. Tanar Rabbanan, another pshat in tzedek tzedek tirda. Tanar Rabbanan tzedek tzedek tirda, if you should pursue righteousness rigorously, halach achar bezdin yafa, you should find a capable court. Achar Rebbe Eliezer LeLud, go to Rebbe Eliezer in Lud. Achar Rebbe Yochanan ben Zakkai LeVror Chayil, or to Rebbe Yochanan ben Zakkai to Vror Chayil. Once we mentioned, Vror Chayil is not a common place. So Tana, we learned in the Brisa, Kol Reichayim beBurni. In Burni, there were persecution by the Goyim, and they didn't allow bris milah. So when there was a clandestine bris milah and they needed a minion, they would make a large sound by the mill, which is a siman of a milah, because they would grind medicine to put on the wound of the circumcision. So everybody would know, Shvua ben, it's a bris. Oraner bebror chayil, that's why we're mentioning it, because it's a place, unusual place, bror chayil. If they lit candles in the day, in bror chayil, mishna sham, that's also a sign of a bris milah. Taisus says, very interesting halachic Taisus over here, Taisus says this is the makar that people light candles at a bris. If you'll see by bris milahs that are in the know, on the front table they have the candelabra, they have the candle service, and they light candles by the bris. So look at Taisus, Mikan nogu la'adlik ner b'milah. From here the minig is to light candles by a bris milah. Tan Rabbanan. Yeah, it's done by many brisin. Tan Rabbanan. Tzedek tirdoif. you should pursue righteousness rigorously. Halach achar chachamim liyeshiva. You should try to find the chachamim that are in yeshiva, that are well versed. Achar Rebbe Eliezer LeLud, you should follow Rebbe Eliezer to his academy in Lud. Achar Rebbe Yochanan Zakkai LeVror Chayil. Achar Rebbe Yeshua LePekian, you should follow Rebbe Yeshua to Pekian. Achar Rebbe Gamliel LeYavna. Achar Rebbe Kiva LeBnei Brak. Right, Ma'aser Rebbe Kiva and Bnei Brak. We have it in the Haggadah. Achar Rebbe Masya LeRomi, follow Rebbe Masya to Rome. Achar Rebbe Chananya ben Tradion LeSichni. Achar Rebbe Yosi LeTzipure. Achar Rebbe Yehuda ben Beseir LeNetziven. Achar Rebbe Yeshua LeGoyla to the diaspora. Achar Rebbe LeBei Sharim. And Achar Chachamim LeLishkas Agazis, the sages in the chamber of cut stone in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, we said that when it comes to Dinei Mamanis, we could open up the case whether for his innocence or for his guilt. But when it comes to Dinei Nefashis, we have to open up for an argument for the innocent of the accused man. So what do? We invent an innocence? So Heichi Amrinan, what do we say? How do we open it up for his innocence? So Amar Rabbi Yehuda says we attack the witnesses. Hachi Amrino, mi yemer k'dekamrisu. Who says it's the way you're saying? So the Gemara says, if you do that, you're going to scare them. Amalei ula v'chasminalu. You're muzzling them. So the Gemara says, so let us muzzle them. Miloi tani Reb Shimon Eliezer Aimer, when we interrogate the witnesses, masiyan es eidim amakim amakim, we move them around to different places, kadesha titarif daitan, in order that they should become confused, v'yazruban, and they should retract. Says the Gemara, no, there we're doing something indirectly. Mi damri hasam emela kamitchu. There we're doing something indirectly. Here we're making an accusation. Who says it's like you say? You can't do that. We asked the condemned man, do you have witnesses to disprove these witnesses and show that they weren't at the time, they were in Dubai? So the Gemara says it's interesting. You say that you don't open for innocence but for guilt, but then you're opening with the guilt of the witnesses. Do we start for the innocent of the condemned of the accused man, which is starting with the guilt of the witnesses? Says no, we won't kill the witnesses, because even if we find that the witnesses were in Dubai, we don't kill them unless we close the case with a conviction. Edim Zayim are not put to death until there was a conviction, and then they were proven to be in Dubai. So this is not at the time of conviction. So the Gemara says, well, Haki Amina. If the accused man would be quiet until the conviction, and then and then he brings witnesses and makes them Eidim Zaimimim, then we would have started the case for the witnesses' conviction. Do you have witnesses to contradict these witnesses? Not to say that they were with us in Dubai, but just to contradict them and say that they saw not like he's saying. They saw that the person tripped and you didn't push him off the cliff, right? You have witnesses to contradict the witnesses. Now, that wouldn't be Eidim Zayim. We wouldn't put to death the first set of witnesses, so that's not a chayiv of the witnesses. We're going to stop over here. What a job tonight. What a beautiful daf. And we're going to do a very, very fascinating Mishnah Yomis now.